to G Women's Women of Influence. Or Voices of Influence, I should say. Today, I'm your host, Frankie Picasso, and this is where we meet extraordinary women whose work, wisdom, and influence are making an impact in the world. My guest today is Arlene Washburn. She is an ethical matchmaking advocate, a business mentor, and founder who has spent nearly 15 years in the matchmaking industry. Today, Arlene focuses on helping matchmaking companies build stronger, more ethical businesses through the Love Pro Mastermind Academy. And she's advancing professional standards and consumer protection through the International Matchmaking Compliance Board. She's also the host of the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, where she tackles the conversations shaping dating, relationships, business, technology, and the future of matchmaking. Arlene, welcome to Voices of Influence.
Frankie, thank you so much. I am so excited to have a conversation with you. It's been a while.
We're excited to have you here. It has. So we start off this program with the origin story. So what was your origin story? What first drew you into matchmaking industry? And when did you realize that your role was going to become much bigger than simply helping people find love?
Thank you for asking that. It's twofold. One is I saw a show on TV and I didn't even know that this career existed. I knew of matchmakers. They've been around for thousands of years, but I saw that this was somewhat of a profession, I thought. And then for 5 years, I was thinking about it. And at one point, I actually went to a matchmaker as a candidate. It was in between my now husband and my divorce. And it was not a really great experience. And going through that process, I recognized that there was so much more that could be done. One of the things that they did, and this is not to say that people don't reform and all of that, but they introduced me to someone who had been in jail. Oh. And this was nothing against that person. They paid their time. Exactly. And happened to be, a physician and a decent guy all in all. But I thought, why would I have to go to a high-end matchmaking company that charges a lot of money? And in my case, I was a candidate, so I wasn't a paying. They had no care for me or even the ability to, or, the wherewithal to disclose the information so that I can make an informed decision. And after going through that experience, I felt like I could do this so much better. So the combination of seeing it on TV and then going through that experience really made me feel like someday I think I want to get involved in this and I want to improve whatever's being done.
Weren't you working in the divorce industry before that or something?
Yeah, I actually, when I started my business as a matchmaker, I became heavily involved in an organization at the time. It was called the Divorce Support Professionals. And I felt that going through the transition of divorce into dating again and opening yourself up to meeting a healthy partner was really important, because most people don't realize this, but if divorce rates are about 50, sometimes a little bit less %, the second marriage goes up to like 70 something %, because people repeat patterns and continue to make poor choices. And so I wanted to be that pattern interrupt. And that's why I got involved with
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the influence behind the influence. So every influential woman, I think, has someone who's challenged and encouraged or inspired them along the way. So who has been your greatest influence on your life or your career? And what lessons did you learn from them that maybe still guide you today?
It's interesting. I've had a lot of time to think about that. And my mom, who is just turned 94, and thank God she's in good health, but she has the early stages of Alzheimer's. And she remembers a lot of things from the past. It's the short-term memory things that really are lost. But at this point in my life, I'm going to be 60 this year, I recognize that my biggest influence was my mother. And she really shaped who I am today. And I have a sister as well who helped shape who I am as well. She's older than me. So, yeah, I would say it was my mother. She was a professor and always teaching, always helping. And when she moved to the United States, I'm a first generation American. I then had to become very adult like because I had translated from my mother and I would help her with things. And she didn't realize it at the time, but I was given a lot of responsibility, even though I have an older sister. And so that made me who I am today. I'm a problem solver, a troubleshooter. I help people with their businesses. I almost have an over functioning way of trying to solve things, which is good and bad because for every gift, there's a curse, right?
Yeah, there's a downside. Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely my mother, I think, is the person who really influenced everything about me.
What was she a professor of?
She taught, she taught like a general thing, I guess, in the Dominican Republic. I honestly could not tell you that. It's a great question. I'm going to ask her that. And then when she came to the US, she went back to school and she got her degree in early childhood development. And so that's what she did here. But great question. Stay tuned. I will get back to you on that because I really don't know.
I for some reason I thought there might have had something with ethics in it. Impact and transformation. You have moved from working within matchmaking to helping shape the standards of the industry itself. So what do you believe needs to change most in matchmaking industry today? And what transformation are you hoping that your work will create, both for professionals and for the people trusting those who do that work with something as personal as love?
Yeah, well, let me tackle that little by little. First and foremost, my background is in the pharmaceutical industry. I was in pharma for 20 years in various positions, growing all the way up to vice president of a company. I was an executive most of the years that I was in it. I was never carrying the bag, as they say. I wasn't knocking on doctors' offices because people always assume that. So in those years, I learned a lot about how to run businesses and gained a lot of business acumen. At the same time, there was a lot of regulations in pharma. When I joined the matchmaking world, I was told, even from industry leaders, that there were no regulations. That because I was looking for it, I'm like, well, what are we doing here? Like, how does this impact? And not, and even till this day, a lot of people believe that there are no regulations that impact matchmaking. And I felt that in order to professionalize an industry, we needed to bring the awareness, because the fact of the matter is that those regulations do exist and they exist to protect clients, right? Consumer protection is very important. Running an ethical business that's transparent, that takes the client in mind, because people go into this because they want to help solve a problem. And then when the money's good, you forget about problem solving and you get caught up with the revenue. And so I wanted to bring an ethical standard and guidelines that literally people can read and run a business based on that. And they're largely based on the laws of the land, not just US laws, but laws everywhere. So I feel very, very passionate about this, and it's definitely going to be what I'm going to do until the day I retire.
Are they required to go to school? Are they trained in any way? Or can I just go, you know what, I'm pretty good at matchmaking people. I think I'll just do it.
Well, the sad part about that, and I'm so glad that you asked that question, is that anyone can hang up a shingle, put up a website, and call themselves a matchmaker and start doing business. That's how I started, and that's how many people start. I realized that that was totally inadequate because there's so much that you don't know, and it's not fair to the clients. And the intuition and Cupid mentality of putting people together is not enough, particularly if you want to run a business. So part of the impetus to create the Love Pro Mastermind Academy was to bring the business acumen with the empathy and the heart that is needed to combine that Cupid with the business person. And it's not required, there's no real certification that is required out there. And I was actually going down the path of developing a certification. And then I recognized that it is really expensive, really hard, and everything that you teach, your curriculum has to be approved not by one body. I happen to be in New Jersey in the US, but if I want to take a client in Pennsylvania, I have to get, accredited by them and all the different states and different countries. And I released that path because I wanted to be nimble. I wanted to shift the training to what's happening today without having to go through that red tape. But I don't really think that there's a true certification out there, but I invite people to go find out if they really truly are certified and if they're acknowledged through governments, because I don't believe that exists.
I know that you said it's a lot of work, that you put in a lot of work, and the people that you teach put in a lot of work to find somebody. But there is a hefty price tag to the business, as a client. So you would hope that they know what they're doing or put in that same amount of work, right?
Yeah, I think it's just creating. I don't like to use the word balance, because there's never balance. There's always focus and integration. So there are times where you're heavily involved in learning how to interact with people, how to communicate better, all the soft skills that you need to be a matchmaker. And then there are times where you should be heavily involved in implementation, how to run a business, how to do things, how to document, how to communicate properly, how to follow the laws and stay attuned to that. And so the program that we developed is a matchmaker acceleration program, where people are learning something, implementing it, submitting it, it gets reviewed, and then it's completed. By the time they're done, they have a full framework of how to run a matchmaking business, but it takes effort. There's no magic pill. There's nothing that you're going to learn out there that's going to solve all your problems unless you make the effort to really learn what you're doing. And, frankly, what I teach can be taught to any kind of business. I just happen to be partial to this particular industry.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your superpower. Influence often comes with seeing something other people miss, as we just found out, or are unwilling to address. So what do you believe is your signature superpower? The perspective, the strength, or the quality that you bring to this industry that has allowed you to challenge accepted practices, push for higher standards?
Oh my gosh, I love that question, because if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear me talk about my superpower, which is seeing patterns and seeing them before most people will. And I remember having conversations with my mom where it sounded almost like I was predicting something, but it was that I was seeing a pattern, a trend that was coming. So an example of that was around COVID, or maybe post-COVID, the Surgeon General in the US mentioned that there was a loneliness epidemic. If you go back to my social media, you'll see that maybe 5 years prior to that, I was already talking about this loneliness epidemic that was coming, because I could see a pattern that was emerging. And so that's always been my superpower. It's just being able to predict based on the patterns that I'm seeing.
Wow. What do you see for my life, Arlene? Okay. Let's talk about amplifying women's voices. Women are often doing extraordinary work behind the scenes while someone else gets the microphone and the credit. What can we do as leaders, business owners, and women supporting women to make sure that more women are heard, recognized, and given the platform that their expertise deserves?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm so glad I got involved with G Woman, because it is about amplifying women's voices, and it's so important for women to support women. And there are times where women might say, you know what, I don't feel like I can make friendships with women. I feel like they're competitive, or they put me down, or whatever. And ding, 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 that was me when I was younger. And it took my daughter, because another woman who made me reflect on that and recognize that it's when you're putting something down that is a part of who you are, you're putting yourself down, and it's really about you, not about them. And that's when, way back when, I got involved with probably the largest women's organization in the world. I became their board chair, and I made it my business to always support women. So I have a sister, I have a mother, and I have a daughter. And I love getting involved with women's organizations. I donate money to Atlas, which is a nonprofit that helps women and children who have been trafficked. And when you help women, you help everyone, because we're the nurturers. We're the ones looking out for our family. We influence our husbands. It's such an important thing. So, and also I would add that the gross majority of matchmakers are female. And when I came into this, I wanted to get these women to think like business owners and not feel masculine about it, that you are running a business, and whether it's a referral fee or, charging what you're worth and what you deserve, all of that is key, because I look at money as an energy exchange. And if you're putting all this energy into what you're doing and helping your clients, you should be charging accordingly. So that's what I would say. I think it's really important to support women.
Claire says, I agree with you, Arlene. It really is so important to support women. And I agree with that too. And I love the idea. It is a money exchange, and women are afraid to ask for what they're worth. But you made a statement that a lot of the women are matchmakers. Are a lot of the women on the other side looking for love, or is it more men that you're making matchmaking with women?
That's a great question, because there is a trend emerging that I saw a while back. When I was a matchmaker, I'm no longer a matchmaker. I strictly teach and support matchmakers. I started a business where all of my clients were men. And the mentality of that was, if a man is willing to invest money, it felt more serious for me. I could then protect the women the way I wasn't protected when I went to a matchmaker, etc. Nowadays, more women are hiring matchmakers. And my statement before is that most matchmakers, a good majority of them, are women. But more women are hiring matchmakers because more women are getting educated. More women are earning a lot more money than they used to. They're in higher positions, and they're looking for someone who is at their level. And I say that cautiously, because women tend to think with hypergamy, which means that they want to date up. They want their equal is on a higher level than they are financially, etc. So what we're finding is that there's been an ongoing trend where women are hiring more matchmakers than men. And so now more matchmakers are accepting women as clients, where in the past it used to be primarily men. And I mean, I can understand that, right? Because it's a lot challenging when you're running a business, or if you're divorced and have children every other week, you need somebody to help you. It's like hiring a realtor if you're looking for a house. So
exactly. So when you mean protect the women, when you went on that date with the doctor who had a background in the penal colony, if you want to call that, were you upset that they didn't tell you before the date? Was that the problem? Or so you could have chosen, yes or no? Or was it that was he the one that told you about it during your date? And then you were kind of like flabbergasted, like, oh my God, what am I going to do now?
Well, he actually did not tell me during my date.
Oh, okay.
So when I say protect, that means that there's a reasonable amount of vetting, that there's transparency and disclosure, and allow people to make their own choices. When I was a matchmaker, I had someone who came to me as a client, and he was a gentleman who had become a PhD and working with clinics. I don't remember the exact details. And he had been to jail, and he was very young, and I understood the nature of his infraction. And what I said to him was, I don't judge. And this is not a judgment thing. It's a disclosure thing. It's a trust thing. All I said to him was, now that I have this information, the only way that I would consider taking you on as a client is if you sign a document that allows me to disclose to the individuals that could potentially meet you so that they can make an informed decision. And really, that's what it's about. It's just about authenticity, trust, transparency, and a code of conduct that is unshakable, where you're not doing things that if your clients find out later on, they're going to think that you're shady. So that's really what it's about.
I think you have an extraordinary potential, not potential, extraordinary, I can't even think of the word, for ethical behavior that most people do not have. And I wish I could think of that, right? Maybe you have the word for me, but I love it. I mean, I think it's so important, but a lot of people don't think about it, or they don't have it to that extreme level, which I think is necessary, so necessary. I mean, can you imagine just the amount of trust that people would have if they all carried that gene, let's say, that ethical gene? Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you talked about who shapes you, my mom is the one who made me who I am today, because I felt responsible for everything and everyone. And when you feel responsible, it sort of plants that seed of ethics and compliance, because now you're being careful with how you move so that you're not hurting other people. And in our case, with me translating every document and, dotting the I's and crossing the T's for my family, that made me feel this sense of responsibility. And then when I was in high school, I used to work as an interpreter in the guidance counselor's office. And there were, situations that I would have to translate for the women, the parents who didn't speak English. And I was privy to information that the other students, I was actually a student. It wasn't like I was working there as a job.
Yeah.
So that made me feel like I cannot disclose this information about someone because it's private. And so all of it shaped me to be who I am today. And today I speak to matchmakers about their business, and they tell me things that are going on that I would never disclose. And people feel very confident in talking to me about anything and everything because they know that I'm like a tomb. Once it reaches me, it's not going anywhere. And it's certainly not going anywhere without permission.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's a big responsibility to interpret for people, because sometimes, you can interpret a certain way. You're not telling it the right way. You're maybe missing a fact or two. It's a big responsibility. People have to have a lot of trust in you, and the school must have had a lot of trust in you to be able to do that. So that's excellent. There's a woman listening today right now who knows that she has something valuable to contribute, but she might still be waiting for permission, confidence, or the right time. What do you want to tell her?
Well, I would say surround yourself with the right people, because the folks that you hang out with are going to influence your success or your demise. If you're with naysayers and people who are putting you down, that is even a rock after getting a drop of water every single minute will eventually dent. So find the right people to be around. G-Woman is a great environment because you're around other business women. Take your pain and turn it into purpose, because most of the people who go into matchmaking, including myself, are people who were struggling to get into the right relationship. And so instead of focusing on woe is me, I'm the victim, this happened to me, take that and turn it into purpose. And just do it, as they say with Nike. Just do it. Don't stop. Just trust yourself and give yourself permission to try new things. And when you fail, that's when you're really going to learn. So you have to embrace the failure. I can't tell you how many things I've done that didn't work out the way I wanted them to, or the way I thought they would, but I learned. Everything in life is a lesson. Everything you do will serve you. And most importantly, invest in your education. The biggest investment that you can make is in learning. That's my only addiction, is I'm always learning. Always be learning. Don't think you know everything. I don't care how many years you're in an industry. Always have that beginner's mind, because the person who's in the room who is listening and learning and open-minded, that's usually the smartest person.
I was going to ask you that too, because it's funny. I wrote a book on dating, and one of the things was, like you said, women want to level up. But if you're not to their level, you can maybe level up one, but if you're like 3 and they're, and up here. So the learning is really important, the changing behavior, or, doing something different so you get a different result. That's what's important. Is that ever, do you give that advice to women? Say, you want that guy? Well, maybe you should, read a book or
Absolutely.
2, or change your hair or something, just, it's not going to happen for you if you don't do that. So yeah, I was thinking
Here's
that too.
what I would say is I'm a truth teller, so I'm not for everybody. I try to be careful in my delivery. Sometimes it doesn't come out quite right. My goal is always to help. And when I had a matchmaking business, if I was approached, and most of my clients were uber wealthy people, I just happened to be in an area where there were very successful people, and I always attracted people that way. If they were not coachable, if they were coming to me asking me, this is what I want for you and from you, and both, I would be like, I'm not the right matchmaker for you, because I'm not an order taker. I'm not gonna ask you if you want fries with that. If you're looking for my expertise, we're good. And yes, I will always listen, and I can certainly learn. I learned from every client that I had. The same with my business. I always say, I do train. I train, and I'm a truth teller. If you tell me that you're doing XYZ and it doesn't make sense, or there's a better way, I've been there, done it, I'm going to let you know about that. And if you come back and say something that is even better than what I'm telling you, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I'm going to use that. That's great, because I'm also open to learning, but I need people open to learning around me, or
Yeah,
it's just not a good mix.
I hear you on that one, sister. Okay, well, that's been Arlene Washburn. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as we say here on Voices of Influence, a woman with a voice influences her world, and a woman with a platform changes it.
Thank you.
Frankie Picasso, thank you. This is the G Woman Media Voices of Influence show. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.